And we're talking about the fear of falling in love. And the reason I started with heartbreak is because many times it's past hurts that put us in that condition. Philophobia may express itself in fear of vulnerability or emotional dependence. You don't want to depend on anyone emotionally. You're just afraid of that. Or it makes you want to avoid relationships that, even if you desire companionship, you just avoid relationships. Or it makes you end relationships abruptly due to fear that things are beginning to get deep. When it's on a surface level, you are cool. But as soon as things begin to get deeper, now you run away. Or the feeling of anxiety just at the thought of love. Just the thought of it makes you anxious. There's a real life story. Queen Elizabeth I, she never got married. And historians say it is because of the turbulent relationship that her parents had. She just made a quiet personal note never to get married. If she wasn't the queen, you will say she didn't have suitors. But I'm sure even in her old age, if she wanted to get married, it will shock you. Some brothers here will volunteer themselves. I heard God. I know what I heard. And there are two things that cause, this fear of loving again. Like I said, past trauma. And then the second thing I want to talk about is childhood experiences. Childhood experiences. You see, something very interesting happened in John chapter 4. A story that we all know. Jesus was seated by the well. And then the Samaritan woman came approaching, about to draw from the well. And then he said, "Give me water to drink." And the woman was surprised. That was a culture shock. Because the Jews usually had nothing to do with the Samaritans. And she said, "How can you, being a Jew, ask me for water?" And Jesus replied, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is who is talking to you, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water." And the woman says, "Well, to begin with, you don't even have a pitcher. How are you going to get this water?" And Jesus said, now listen carefully, he's making a differentiation. The water that you drink, if you drink it, you will thirst again. But the water that I give will be a well springing up to everlasting life. Now listen, a lot of times when we're teaching from this text, what we establish is that Jesus was speaking in a prophetic, metaphorical way to say that salvation, like water, satisfies, but it satisfies eternally. The woman thought they were having a conversation about water, potable water, ever water, or any other brand you can think of. But Jesus wasn't talking about drink at all. He was using it as a metaphor to teach her about salvation. Come on, I get what I'm saying. So how do you drink? It is by believing in Jesus. That's what he was teaching. But another thing we miss out is that not only was the water Jesus was talking about different, the water that he was saying she's drinking is also different. It had nothing to do with the well. Come on, are you with me? So what water did he say that she drinks? You could say natural water, but it was deeper than that. And that's why he asked her. The reason you've had 5 husbands, and upon that the person you are with is not your husband, is because there is something secret and internal you are looking for. Please, are you listening to this? Oh my God. Please listen. What you might see might be patterns of bad behavior. Jesus is doing something diagnostic. He's saying there is something internal, a sense of insufficiency, something that you are looking for that is making you repeat those poor decisions. It's just like the prophet Jeremiah. I think it's Jeremiah. God was speaking through him. He said, "My people have committed 2 great sins. They've left me, the well, the spring of living water, and they've hewn for themselves broken cisterns that hold no water." In essence, that same metaphor was used in the Old Testament to say you are looking for satisfaction in the wrong places. The reason why you keep entering wrong relationships is because you are looking for satisfaction. There is something you're looking for. And as a proof, even after 5 marriages and a boyfriend, when Jesus said, "Go and call your husband," she said, "I have none." You know, I've told you jokingly, seriously, that is indicative of the fact that she was keeping options open in case Jesus was interested. Listen, if you ask someone who is in a relationship, are you in a relationship? And the person says it's complicated, it means the person is telling you it depends on if you're interested or not. I can be single tonight. One text message. It's not you, it's me. She was keeping the options open. And that was spiritual diagnosis. What you really need is salvation. And that need for God, that satisfaction that can only come from God, has shown up in different dysfunctions in your life. You have hewn for yourself broken cisterns that hold no water. For some people, it's drugs. For some people, it's just the desire to please everyone, the desire to be accepted. And I think the reason I told you this text is because a lot of people don't see the theological significance or importance of being diagnostic in teachings like this. They don't see the importance of pointing things out. You know, one of the reasons I really love Jesus' teaching is because he engaged what I call scenario preaching. Jesus could easily tell you, hey, you need to forgive. But he didn't just say that. True stories, for instance, when he says somebody was owing $5 billion and his master forgave him. And the person who was forgiven went to his own servant who was owing him $5. See, if I tell you that God forgave you and you should forgive, you may not be able, you may not have the intelligence to put it side by side to understand how much God forgave you. And so Jesus, being a brilliant teacher, puts it in a scenario so that you can have a mental model. Come on, I get what I'm saying. That's scenario preaching. Or when he says the kingdom of heaven is like a vineyard. So what that does for you is this. When you find yourself in that exact example, you know what to do. Because not everybody who has knowledge has wisdom. Are you getting what I'm saying? If you tell people they ought to forgive, they may lack the ability to bring it into practical scenarios. So when Jesus says, when you bring your sacrifice to the temple and there you remember that someone had ought against you, drop it first. It's still a teaching on forgiveness, but he's using a practical scenario so that if you find yourself in that situation, you will know what to do.